Good day. How's everyone doing? Welcome to Awkwardly Awesome. My name is Regan, and I'd like to share a little bit about my experiences growing up in Papua New Guinea today. Um, I really enjoyed talking about it last time, and so I thought I would just talk about some of the activities that we did while I was there. I'm going to try to stick to the positive this time and not bring in any of the things that were less awesome. Um, I'd like to just take a moment uh, to say thank you to my cousin who reminded me of the swimming that we did because we swam a lot. We New Guinea is a very damp place. They get tropical rain, and the rivers are beautiful and amazing. And uh, there's many people. That's a big part of how and how they get around and travel. And I was lucky enough to live right next to the ocean for several years. Um, the place I lived was near a little town called Candrian, which I haven't been there in a long time, so I couldn't tell you very much about what it's like now. But when I lived there was two stores and a post office, a medical center, and we had some rudimentary solar-powered telephone connections. Our phone was actually a metal box. It was just like it was about this big and about 2 feet high and a foot and a half wide, and it was bolted to a pole. There was yeah, it wouldn't work as soon as the sun went down. It was solar powered. That's how the whole telephone grid at that part of the island was run. But that's how we made phone calls. And there's massive time change between calling from one place to the other, and like between here in Canada and Papua New Guinea. But we did it, and that was pretty cool too. Actually, we'd stand out 50 yards off the road with a phone that we would carry to the box and unlock it, and then plug in our phone. So we couldn't really receive calls. I mean, we could. If you phoned us, the phone would ring, but we never had a phone in the box at full time. It probably would have gotten stolen or something would have happened to it. One time, somebody took a shit right on top of the box, just kind of to put us in our place, I suppose. But yeah, so we didn't trust leaving a phone there. Or we might have ended up with a massive bill because someone would have just busted the lock off and used our phone indiscriminately. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about living there was spearfishing. Um, like I said, we lived right near the water. We lived right on the beach, pretty much. Our house was 30 yards back from the ocean front. I woke up to the sound of the waves lapping in the mangroves every morning. And it was a beautiful view out the front. There was a island directly out, about a mile out, and it was shaped kind of like an old hat, it's like the brim and then the crown, and then where the island spread out around it, the beach spread out around the top of what was probably once a mountain. I guess they still call it a mountain, and that's where the villages had the gardens. All the gardens were up on the top, and then the people lived around by the seashore. In between there was several reefs and different sandbars and all sorts of different nautical, you know, ocean-related, uh, I guess, navigation hazards when it comes right down to it. But there was a cool reef, and the reefs were like just beautiful. I mean, they make Disney and a Pixar's versions of reef life in Finding Nemo to look pretty bland. Actually, they're amazing. There was all kinds of cool Cool animals, and there was dangerous animals as well in the water. New Guinea's actually a pretty safe place. There's pythons on land, and scorpions and centipedes, and that's about it for dangerous stuff. I guess they probably had some New Guinea singing dogs, which are like their wild dog version of coyotes or wolves that we would have here. But they're extremely reclusive. I only ever heard them when I lived there. I'd hear them singing in the jungle when we went on walks, and I asked the people, "What are those?" They said, "Well, those are dogs." I said, "Have you ever seen one?" They're like, "No." You don't see them. They are like super reclusive. They're very cool dogs. Most of the dogs there have some kind of a singer genetic bloodline. I know my dog did. And yeah, that was a really cool aspect as well. Hearing those dogs, I didn't even realize I just thought that the people were pulling our leg or lying to us, because they would often just kind of tell you what you wanted to hear. Like they held us in a certain level of regard, and if they didn't want to explain something, they would just tell us what they thought we wanted to hear, which was kind of difficult to deal with at first, but you sort of get used to it. You just kind of start to take what they say with a grain of salt, and not that, for the most part, they're very honest people, but if it's something that they don't want you to know, they'll lie to you at the drop of a hat. I guess much like everywhere else in the world. But in the water, the dangerous creatures, there was a lot more of them. There was stonefish. Somebody speared a stonefish right out in front of our house one time, which I guess are the most poisonous fish in the world. They're only dangerous if you step on them, and we never did. But apparently, if you step on them, it can kill you or cause excruciating pain. So we were lucky that we never had to encounter that. There was stingrays, there was sharks, there was sea snakes. I think the banded crate sea snake lived around there. And then there was scorpion fish and lionfish and all manner of venomous, spiny fish, which we also never encountered. We could see them. It was right off the reef in front of my house. We could go out with a canoe, and when the water was clear, you could just look down and you could see these, vastly finned creatures with this deadly spines of poison on the tip of every one. They're just the most beautiful fish ever, but they're, it's just like if something's super brilliant and bright colored on the reef, generally it's like a poison arrowed frog. Don't touch it. There was also sea urchins. Lots of sea urchins. You'd come out. Sometimes the whole reef would be covered in sea urchins, and it was just nowhere to put your feet down. I did get stuck by sea urchins a couple times, and it hurt really badly, but it wasn't debilitating. The most annoying part is the spines would go into your foot and then break right off almost instantly, and then you'd be stuck with these black chunks in your feet that would hurt for days on end. So I only ever kind of brushed up against them and got stuck that way. But yeah, and I never knew anybody who actually got severely stuck with them. But I spent a lot of time in the water, so it was almost inevitable that I was going to have that kind of an encounter. Let's see what my notes have to say here. The general equipment that we would use for spearfishing, well, it was a spear gun. It's a homemade spear gun. The guys would take a plank about 3 feet long, and they would shave it down into a rough rifle shape. And then the trigger was, it's going to be hard to explain. I could maybe draw it out, but it was this arched piece of wood like this, and then on the bottom side it would come down to make like a flat foot. So if this is the surface that it was attached to, it would sit like this, and when you squeeze down on the trigger on this end, it would open up, and it would cause this pinching action, and that's what would hold the spear in place. And then around the front, you would take a piece of rubber, and you would attach rubber up at the front. And generally the place where you attach the rubber, you would also put a little piece of pipe. The people like to use pieces of a broken off umbrella You know, the little metal tube. You know, you didn't want it that big. You only wanted it about, you know, a little over a 1/4 inch maybe. I've seen them a little bit bigger, but the tighter it was, the better accuracy you had with the spear gun. So that would just guide the spear, you know, as the rubber released it. So you would tie that around the front with the rubber attached to it, and then we would take the rubber and we would attach a little wire loop to it, and then that would come back, and the spear was usually just a piece of it was just a piece of wire, really. It was a long piece of wire, probably about 2.5 feet long, maybe a little bit longer, 3 feet. And you would sharpen one end of it up, and then you would pound the other end flat. And then 90 degrees from that flat, so you have the flat here that would get pinched in the trigger mechanism, and 90 degrees from that you would have another flat pounded this way, which you would file a groove in, or take a hacksaw and cut a little groove in. Wire loops from the rubber would come back and attach to it. So yeah, and they were really accurate. They were very, very fun to use. You know, we shot them on the land all the time when we were kids, and it's just what we wanted to do. There wasn't a lot of firearms in New Guinea, so if you wanted to hold something like a gun and shoot it, that was kind of what there was. The other equipment that we would use was goggles or a mask. And the goggles that you could buy in New Guinea, just at like the local store, the local store in Canberra was called Michael Chan's, and there wasn't even any rubber around the eyes. It was just these plastic cups with a lens in it, and then they'd usually be tied together with a rough string, and you would just like tuck them into your eye socket and pinch down on it, and they did a great job. Actually, I liked using them. I don't know about more, because there was a little more effort involved, but I used them extensively. Rather than using my normal snorkeling mask. But it was useful to have a snorkel, so I ended up using my mask a lot as well. You would use a flashlight, because we'd always go at night. You know, you could take a spear gun out and try and hunt during the day, but those fish are used to being eaten. You know, everyone around them that they've ever known pretty much gets eaten by something. So they're very hard to hit and very hard to get in the day. So during the day we would fish with a string and a line, like a string and a hook, and at night we would go out and try and shoot them. And it was fun. It was so fun. You have a big flashlight in your left hand, and the spear gun in the right, and you or you'd have somebody shining a light for you. That was also, you know, you kind of wanted a dive partner. You could do it without one, but having a partner made it so much easier. And you get someone to shine the light on the fish, and then the shooter would take the shot. And yes, I'm going to keep this over here. And you have a stringer, which would just probably be a thick piece of fishing line. You tie the first fish onto it and then slide the other ones onto the stringer through the gills, just like a regular stringer. The snorkel was good because you could keep your face in the water longer, but as far as making you streamlined and being able to dive down, that's why I didn't like the mask as much, because as soon as you dove down to try and get a shot at something a little bit deeper, the water pressure would press it onto your face, and you weren't as streamlined. It was a little bit harder to move around. Fins were also optional, but they were one of those options you really wanted to have, because they helped you move around in the water so much better. Most of the New Guineans didn't have flippers or fins, to help them swim. They just did it barefoot. But we had them, and we used them a lot. There were dangers out on the reef. The reef coral just by itself is pretty sharp. I got cut on the coral more times than I can ever count. It was, You take a wrong step on a sharp edge, you cut your foot, or you put your hand down on something, and there'd be like a hidden sharp edge, and you cut yourself open. You always get cut on the reef. So it's sharp. It's very aggressive terrain if you're going to touch it at all. And then there was also sharks. There was lots of sharks. I only ever saw them a couple times. My brother caught one on his fishing line, but he wasn't able to pull it in. They were everywhere. You know, they were a constant presence, but never a threat. I never knew anybody in the 7 years I lived there. I never knew anybody who got attacked by a shark. Not even mildly, not even bumped. Like, sharks just kind of did their own thing. They were pretty cool, actually. Very cool addition to the reef. Usually we would see the silver tip sharks or black tip sharks. And I saw, I think, a 7 to 9 footer one time, and I was even bleeding that day. I'd slipped and busted my knee open on the reef getting into the water, and there was no way I wasn't going to go and see the sharks, because that was one of the few times that I did see sharks, and they lived right off the edge of a reef near where my friends lived. So I got in the water. I was like, no way, I am doing this. And they didn't bother me at all. They were just like swam around, did their shark thing. That one kind of like took a look at me and was like, okay. And it just, I always remember that too, because that moment was just amazing. The shark came up, swam past me, and I could see its dead sharky eye look over at me, and I looked at it, and then it just kind of like give a little flick, and it was gone. And I remember being so impressed with how fast it could move in the water, and I remember thinking, oh shit, if that thing wanted to get me, I'm done. There's nothing I could do to get away from that shark or to punch it in the gills or whatever. I mean, the only way you're going to get any kind of an attack in on a shark is if they're coming in slow. But if they were coming in fast with the intent to grab you, you're done. There's no reaction time. You're in the water. You can't move fast. Regardless of how fast you move like a slug compared to a shark. Another thing there was eels. That was another one of the hazards in the water. People don't really think too much about eels, but the moray eel can get up to 5-6 feet long, and they're big, like really big, and they're not afraid of anything because they generally hide in the rocks. I mean, maybe they're afraid because they're hiding in the rocks, but it's just smart. They find a long passage and they hide in there, and then they dart out and grab whatever comes by them. And one night I was going to shoot one, and I had caught one before. Like, I hooked it and pulled it out. It was a massive fight. It took like 45 minutes or an hour and a half. The hook got set in hard, and the line didn't break, and I had to just pull it out of the rock inch by inch by inch. It just took forever. And once it came out, it slimed up my line. It started like tying itself in knots and like thrashing around trying to get off the hook. And it was not going to happen. It was, the hook was like in it. The people that we gave the eel to eat, they had to cut the hook or cut it open to get the hook out. But it thrashed around to a violent extent, and it just gave off this slime all over its body, and all of my line was wrecked. Like, everything was destroyed as far as my fishing line. It just got covered in this slime. I'm sure I could have washed it off, but we weren't rich by any means, but it was, the line just got horribly tangled, and when you have a mess like that, usually you just cut it out. So that's what we ended up doing. Anyway, I saw this massive eel while we were fishing one night, and I put a light on it, and I pulled my gun up to shoot it. We were using a different gun that night. It was just a shaft with the rubber attached around the back, and you slide your hand forward holding the rubber, and then you just let go of the shaft, and it launches the spear. But my dive partner, who was with me that night, saw what I was pointing at, and he saw my spear kind of come up, and he just pushed the spear down, and he was like, no, don't shoot that. He said, if you shoot it, it will come out and bite your face. You know, and he said that all in like sign language under the water, but it was like, no, it will come in and it'll directly attack your face. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't want that sharp-toothed, nasty dude coming out and biting me in the face. Even though I had a mask on, it could have easily killed me. Like they're so strong, they're an insanely strong creature. So I was really lucky. It was a massive moray eel, and the guy just told me, yeah, don't shoot it. So we didn't. Um, Another hazard in the water was fish attacks. You could get attacked by the different fish. One night I was attacked. I speak about this in another video that I was uh, uh, on Rogueways season 3, episode 4. We talk about it briefly, but one night we were in the water. We had just got into the water. You know, we were just putting on our gear, getting our swim. I think I had my fins on or my flippers, and that's it. And you know, I mean, I had clothing on, but as far as my fishing gear, I had flippers on. I was getting my mask ready, spitting in it, wiping it out, trying to get it so it wouldn't fog up. And all of a sudden, we heard a saltwater gar jumping through the water, like jumps out of the water and in and out and in and out and in. And I think it's to either avoid predators or to hunt so that it can, you know. But anyway, we would see them doing it all the time. Sometimes if they got caught, if somebody hooked one, they would jump right out of the water and skitter along it, like up in the air on their tail. But this one was just jumping in and out of the water, and we could hear it out in the water. We knew what it was. It was just this splop, 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 splop. It had a steady rhythm. And my dive partner that night was a fella named Waka, and he took his flashlight and he shined it on my chest. And instantly we heard the sound of the fish change. It changed directions, and it came bang, hit me right in the chest, right here. I can still feel it. I still got a little scar there. And it couldn't have been a very big one. I saw it coming in. It was maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet long, but it hit me right in the chest. It has a really long, skinny nose, and its nose like dug into my chest and broke off a little bit, and it hit me hard. Like I was squatting in the water, so the water was kind of supporting me, and wasn't expecting it, but it popped me in the chest, and I fell right off the rock that I was on. And everyone laughed, thought it was hilarious. And that was another time that I went swimming in the ocean while bleeding, because there was no way I was going to hop back into the boat and be like, oh no, a shark can smell a teaspoon of blood in 1 billion teaspoons of water, and I can't be fishing tonight. There's no way. I was like, no, I will deal with the sharks. And we didn't see any, so it was no big deal. But yeah, that fish, it's to this day, I can still feel exactly where it hit. I've got a little clump of scar tissue there. You know, it was you couldn't go out all the time. Like, it wasn't like a thing you could do every night. You know, when the moon was full, the fish would see your shadow on the floor of the water, or of the ocean floor, or they'd see your shadow against the reef, and you could never get close enough to them to shoot. So you could only do it kind of around the new moon, in the weeks around the new moon, about 10 days. You had 10 days of fishing a month that way. And we tried to go out every single night. I mean, if the weather was too bad and the sea was big, or if the clarity of the water was bad, you couldn't go either. So you couldn't go like 10 nights a month. You you might get 4 or 5, depending on the conditions and the season. If it was rainy season, you wouldn't go out because it was just too stormy, and it was just raining nonstop. So it was, I mean, I guess if you were starving, you probably could have gone out and maybe got something then. But it wasn't enjoyable to do it then, so we didn't do it then. One of the things that we like to do was eat everything that we shot. You know, if you weren't gonna eat it, don't shoot it. If you didn't, you know, we never shot something like pufferfish just because they were an easy target. We never shot scorpionfish or lionfish because you couldn't touch them. The only thing that I ever saw people kill there that they couldn't eat was stonefish, because they were dangerous. I would clear them out. You know, if they ever found one, they would kill it, just so that they didn't have to worry about their children stepping on it in the water when they were playing. Um, Despite the fact that there were risks, oh, I mean, I guess there was stingrays and there was other stuff too. I mean, there was definitely things that were were dangerous on the reef. You see a sea snake now and then, which apparently I guess have the most toxic venom in the whole world. But they were really mild. They just never bothered you. So we didn't bother them. We just kind of lived in peace and harmony with them and did our thing. Um, yeah, in spite of the risks, though, it was completely worth doing. Um, there's another world down there, and it's hard to imagine it if you've never seen it. I mean, the other thing too is nighttime snorkeling, incredible. Yeah, it made daytime snorkeling on the most beautiful reefs in the world dull. Like at night, everything comes out. All the something that would otherwise look like a rock, suddenly it is like Disney's Pixar's depictions of the reef. You go down there and there's just sponges and anemones and uh, different just stuff that I don't even know what it is. I spent 7 years swimming around it and checking it out, and I never found out kind of what lots of the stuff was, just because I was more interested in shooting stuff and, and doing that. But there was so many amazing on the reef. It's just mind blowing, really. Kind of, yeah. It's humbling. You go down there during the day and you look around and take pictures and like, wow, this is so cool. And then you go out at night and like everything is multiplied by 10. It's just amazing. I got bored with going daytime snorkeling. People are like, want to go snorkeling? I'd be like, nah, I'll go at night. Night is where it's at. And I mean, there were more risks at night. It's dark and you can't see anything. And that's when all the most dangerous predators are out in the ocean. But life without risks isn't worth living. You can sit in your home and you can stay near your family and live within what you feel is comfortable. But that's not really living. That's just existing. You go out, take some risks, challenge yourself. That's what this life is really about, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it's about you know getting your next hamburger or eating some dark chocolate, which I love to do. I mean, I'm probably gonna eat some dark chocolate right after I finish shooting this video. But that's not what life is about. Life is about challenging yourself. Life is about growing. Find some adversity and put yourself through it. I've been through a lot of adversity. I've talked about it, fairly extensively on this channel, and anybody else who's talked to me. Hard things come up. Life is a difficult journey, but I believe that we've chosen to be here on some level, and I believe that this is what we're supposed to be doing. So we shouldn't shy away from the challenges. We shouldn't shy away from the things that are hard and the things that might make us sad. If I was going to be afraid of the things that might make me sad, I never would have opened my heart up to love, because I've found lots of sadness there. Like uh, when you open yourself up to love somebody and it's not returned, or you're pushed away, it's a painful experience. And on the other hand, though, when they accept you, 5 minutes of acceptance and love makes years of rejection and pain just disappear as though it wasn't anything at all. So that's an amazing part about being alive, is that we have the ability to wash away the pain and the sadness with just a moment's happiness. That's pretty awesome. Life is too short for us to not really live it. If you're just existing, it's a it's a poor way to live your life, in my opinion. Find yourself a challenge, find yourself something difficult, get out there and master it. Life is not about hiding from the things which cause us to feel trepidation and fear. It's about seizing them and mastering them. I'm probably beating this to death, but I really believe it. You know, it's something that I don't do often enough, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to go out. I'm going to do some things like that today. I'm going to go for a run. I've been watching Bear Grylls Running Wild, and Running Wild with Bear Grylls, whatever. And I think I might grab a piece of rope and go out and see if I can climb up over something that I wouldn't be able to get over without a rope. That might be the challenge that I take on for myself today. So, carpe diem, seize the day. We don't get an infinite supply of them, even when it feels like we'll be here forever. Life is too short to live safely. On that note, I guess I'm just going to call it a video here, and I'm going to say, I hope everybody has an awkwardly awesome day. God loves you, and so do I.